I don't think they have the same quality of players that they had 4 or 5 years ago.
This weekend, when Man City come to the Emirates, is a great test for Victor Gyökeres because I think a lot of the talk is, has he just been brought in to be a flat track bully against the smaller teams? So,
Yeah.
he will be tested this weekend. Although it's a strange one because I've never felt like Arsenal were such clear favorites to win a match against Manchester City. Even last season when City were in such a bad way, I think it took a while for us to fully realize the how deep the rot went last season. But now they're very much in a rebuild. Pep Guardiola, it feels like, could be on his way out sooner rather than later, whereas Arsenal are at least positioning themselves to firmly challenge.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think there was an element of people looked at Manchester City in the Club World Cup and said, well, they've strengthened and they've bought more players in, give them a little bit of time and they're going to be great. Then they win the first game of the season against Wolves comfortably, and everyone goes, Man City are back. Here we go. Now we've got a challenge on our hands. Liverpool are going to be fighting against Manchester City and Arsenal. And then all of a sudden we watch Manchester City and we're like, oh, right, it's back to usual and nothing's really changed. They lose a couple of games on the bounce and it becomes very difficult for them. I'm I'm in the camp at the moment of Man City have lost that air of invincibility, and I don't think they have the same quality of players that they had 4 or 5 years ago. I look at the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva at his very best, but the players I look at are Riyad Mahrez. I don't think they've replaced Mahrez's quality on that right hand side. I don't think that obviously Jack Grealish on the left as well, or Phil Foden, whoever played out on that side. I still don't think they've got better players in those areas. I don't think Doku's as good a player. I think he slows the game down, and that sounds really daft saying that because he's such a quick player. But he loves to get people stood still, so then he can accelerate. But while everyone else is stood still, or his opponent is, the rest of the team are getting back into shape, and he's such a frustrating player. So I just don't think City are at that same level that they were a few years ago. I think the sign of Donnarumma will be very interesting to see how good he actually is. I think he's being a big game player, but when I look at the some of the Champions League performances last year, and he did well in the Champions League, but I thought he struggled in some other games against Aston Villa, away at Villa Park. I thought he made some great saves, but there was other times where I was thinking, oh, I'm not so sure on some of his decision making. So I think that's going to be a very interesting position for Manchester City this season. But they've also had to contend with the Club World Cup, and where does that leave them in terms of fatigue, fitness, going into the latter parts of the season? Time will tell, and it's going to be great to see how it plays out again.
Yeah, Donnarumma is so interesting because he felt like to me he beat Arsenal essentially with his fantastic play in that semifinal. It felt like he won a couple of those ties for them. Liverpool against Liverpool
Yeah,
as well. He was very very
he was
good.
great. Yeah.
But is he almost as you say a big game clutch player? And is the bigger question how is he going to grind out all 38 well, I guess it's less than 38 now, but you know what I mean, the whole league season, all of these cup games? Is he more of a once we get to April, May, I'm going to make some big saves, or maybe I'm overthinking it and he's just a top keeper?
Yeah, listen, I think he is a good goalkeeper, but why does Luis Enrique get rid of who everyone thought was the star of the team? He doesn't make that decision lightheartedly. He's looking at everything that's going on, and he's saying, if we need to improve, we need to change the goalkeeper. Why? Why are you getting rid of Donnarumma then? Is it because he's not as comfortable on the ball, playing out from the back, because Paris Saint-Germain dominate games? Is it because in big moments he lacks concentration because predominantly Paris Saint-Germain would dominate the ball, and then it might just be that rare counter-attacking moment or rare moment where the opposition get a shot in a goal and he switches off and he's not concentrated? Is that what it is? And I think we'll see that throughout the season, what his weaknesses are, because every player has a weakness, whether you're the best player in the world or an average player within the Premier League. everyone's got a weakness. We just need to see what it is, and we'll see his weaknesses at some point this season. Obviously, Pep Guardiola will be hoping that there's not many weaknesses, and he doesn't show them this season, because he's had to make a big call in that area by signing James Trafford and then deciding after a couple of months of the season that he's not the guy, and we want to bring in Donnarumma.
Yeah, that was a strange, passage of transfer market activity to me. I've seen it said that it might speak to a more short-termism to City's approach at the moment, that if you had a 5-year plan, probably you would have stuck with Trafford. But although I guess Donnarumma is pretty young as well, especially for a goalkeeper. But I just feel everything around City right now is a bit like we have 1 or 2 years of Guardiola left. We're just going to try and snag one more trophy, and then we know it's going to be a proper rebuild with a new manager. It just feels like they're at the end of something rather than the middle.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a society that we live in now, is that we want everything yesterday.
Yeah.
And Man City fans, the ownership are no different. They want success again because they've had it. And it's that feeling of, where's it gone? How do we get it back? We open the checkbook and we try and buy as many players as we can get into the football club. But even the spending level has been different to what we're used to with Manchester City in the past. The spending over the summer, yes, they spent a lot of money, but it wasn't the big £100 million signings. It was 30 and 40 million, which from Manchester City's standards is relatively low. The quality of players that they've been able to attract isn't the same as what we've seen in the past. Now suddenly teams are competing with Manchester City, and suddenly that air of invincibility that we spoke about isn't there, that players want to join. They're saying, well, maybe they're on the decline a little bit, Manchester City. There's a lot of talk around the charges at the football club as well. Do players want to sign because they're not sure where the football club's going to be at? So it's in a little bit of a sticky situation at the moment, Manchester City, both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, I wonder if, they signed a lot of players, as you say, for not as much money per player, but they brought in a bunch. You wonder if they think there's a possibility of a transfer ban, that they want to get a bunch of young players in and then they'll be set, even if they're not, allowed to do more in future windows.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. And that was something I spoke about last season when they did the business in January and they were bringing in the likes of Mamouche and you were looking at, and I think it was Nico Gonzalez and I think it was the centre back as well, wasn't it? Kusanov as well. Those were the three players that came into the football club, and you were looking, thinking, are they doing this now because they know something's on the horizon? They did the business quite early this summer as well, trying to get players through the door. But you did just feel like it was, a moment of, if we get hit with a transfer embargo, then we're a little bit set and we've got enough players through the door.